Great. So welcome everybody to today's Thursday Live. It is, I think it's June 2nd already, hard to believe. And welcome, and we have Claire McIntyre with us here and Connie helping on support and chat. And I also have my special guest, Dr. Debbie Drake, going to help and assist today as we continue to help give everybody ideas on working with the bioterrain. If you've listened to Dr. Debbie's Tuesdays lives, you've gotten a bit of her theory. So we're here today and trying to implement and how to put it into practical use in using the Genius. So that's what we're going to be working on today. And the topic today is coordinated again with Dr. Debbie Drake's Tuesday, and that will be on food poisoning and connecting that with celiac and how the effects with bacteria. And I am going to be the volunteer again, since we already started working on me last week. This way we can kind of look at everything sequentially as we work over time. It was just a little bit easier to have me just work on the same person. And I guess I kind of had a good bioterrain to work on. So
you're such a juicy subject.
So anyway, why don't we get started here? Sorry, some of my controls just left my screen here. Okay. So I have all my information in here. So anybody who is new or just starting out with the Genius, I have my information already entered in here with my birth date. I'm just going to hit next. And I'm going to leave my voice, record my voice so I can hit that control myself. And I'm going to do that now. Denise Michelle Armenio, AEIOU, AEIOU, AEIO. Okay, so now after I have left my voice recording, I am going to go down to the bottom left and press the voice harmonics. And what this is it actually is the Genius translated my 15-second little audio clip and has translated it into the frequencies. It is a little bit difficult to hear, but hopefully you will hear a little bit.
Remember, in our theory, we talked about the frequency of the fractal transformation pattern, where we make a unique waveform from the voice print. So your voice print is giving you the vowels, which is the organs, and then we're translating that into a waveform, and then we can send that back as a piggyback within your therapy session. So you're hearing your own voice print, and your body says, "I received that. I know that voice." So it's a great piggyback to carry other frequencies into you on the piggyback of your own voice.
So, and thank you for explaining that. So now I'm just going to hit next on the bottom right-hand side. And I'm just going to continue. And I'm going to take a new picture. And here I am. And use this photo. And now begin analysis on this. And we can continue again. Okay, so for my affirmation, I am going to put, whoops,
My gut brain works perfectly.
My gut brain works perfect. Whoop, perfect.
And I am free of all pathological entities.
And then I was gonna put all
Denise, your volume's gone down because of the analysis.
is it better now?
Will it
Okay.
go up a touch?
Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
You can still hear you, but it feels like it's gone down a touch.
Well, maybe after I finish this, let me
That's
just.
better. Yeah.
All frequencies are transmuted to love, right?
Right. And love is 528 hertz, which is the frequency of DNA. So you're talking to your DNA directly to say, tune yourself up when you use that phrase or frequency.
So I'm just going to hit OK now. And can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So I am going to go into libraries and make sure that I have all libraries added to me because I did create some today for this session. And
I think we need a whole session on building libraries one day.
no. So now that I have everything, so for anybody that just has the trial or has the basic version, you will just see biofield, body, and mind. The only time you will get the library banners is if you've purchased libraries or created libraries or a friend has shared some libraries with you. So I'm going to go and hit begin analysis. And okay. So what this is telling us now, just to give a little bit of training on the Genius for anybody that is new, the Genius is working with all its algorithms, is showing because biofield is on top, that is where a lot of energetic disturbances, and it would be the priority on the area in which to work in. And then next would be libraries, body, and lastly, mind. The Genius uses a number system. So as you can see on the right, there are numbers here, and the range of the numbers go from 0 to 777, 0 to 100 is represented by the color blue. And in this range, we will see chronic energetic disturbances. So anything that falls in this range, you've had a disturbance on the particular library or item for a longer period of time. We then get into the range from 101 to 450, and that's represented by the color green. And then from there, we go from 451 to about 688 is represented by yellow. And 689 to 777 is represented by the color red. Those would be more acute energetic disturbances. So they're happening now in the present. This can also be considered like over energy or heat or inflammation. And also just getting back to the blue for a minute, that chronic energetic disturbance can be viewed as stagnant energy or under energy. So then the next thing that you want to look at on this page is all the way to the left next to the different wording, the Saveggio tones or sacred geometry, we see the accordion or a down arrow. That's telling us that there's, if we click on the line, that there's more information below it. So in other words, here where I'm on the line for chakra, if I click on that, you will see all the different chakras. Before we get much further, I just want to go in and get our aura or my aura picture. And you do that by clicking on the line for aura. And I'm just going to hit begin analysis. And I have a very funky looking aura today, but it's not, the green is where it should be today. Remember last week it was a little bit flipped, I believe. But so when we're looking at the aura, I like to see bright, vibrant colors. So we have a little bit of a mix here. We have a little bit of green, but I'm seeing a lot of kind of not so fun, dirty, muddy looking gray color to me on the bottom, which is really showing me some stagnant energy. Maybe that is, you could say, since it's on the bottom, maybe that's in the lower chakras. And then there's some green in there. And then we have, it looks like what's possibly blue coming through here. Blue could be throat chakra, but overall, hopefully we'll be able to clean this up a little bit.
Just remember that entities also have an aura. So if you have one particular blob of a color way up in your high aura, it could be in a second brain engram or spiritual oppression or the tapeworm frequency that's lingering around you. And many times once you clear out parasites of the gut, you'll lose those blobs above the head as if that was the mind of the other entity.
Okay, so that's great. So we'll look and see, hopefully, that we can clear that today. So let's go back now. So now what I think that everybody, if you're been here for the last few weeks, you have heard both Dr. Debbie and I talk about trying to like or get us prepare our
Prime
bodies for working with the genius. So the best way that we've gone about doing that is working with a lot of the areas in the biofield, which is actually where the genius is showing I need some work, and also bringing in some minerals and some other items. So I'm going to work by starting to bring in some of those items and put them into the quick zack tray so that we can go back to them if we need them throughout this demo scan. So I'm going to start by, let's start at the bottom here with spiritual protection. And I'm just going to bring all of these up. I do need grounding. It's showing that I need grounding. Some of this other stuff in here doesn't look so bad actually, but that might change. We can work on the meridians. I'm going to bring the governing meridian up and the conception vessel, and I guess add the bladder meridian in there since it's off.
Since we're working on the gut, I would also use those yellow ones in the gut, like the intestines and liver.
Yeah. I'm just going to pull all the ones that are
remember, if you blow a fuse in the brain, you can't light the lamp down the hall. You have to fix the original wiring before you change the bulb. So working on the end organ may not be sufficient. You have to open up the channels to the organ first.
Right. I'm going to add aura just to have it up there. And then Nogier's. Now, again, for those of you who aren't familiar with Nogier's, Dr. Nogier found that our organs and our glands have their own frequencies. And so if the frequency is out of balance, or the function of those organs or glands that they represent may also be out of balance. So I'm just going to add in all of these. And the chakras, we can add those as well.
So as we've been talking, she's creating a vessel of scaffolding upon which all the other frequencies will be poured into her. But without that vessel, these energies may not stick in her well. So taking a minute or two at the beginning to create a receiving vessel, like a bowl, for which you're going to pour the other interesting frequencies into, will help not only get faster results by priming her, but also remain and hold these results for many days or weeks longer.
Right. And I'm also just seeing, oh, okay, Claire answered. There was a question here that does it matter what you add first to the trays? No, it doesn't. Because it's all going to go through all at once. I don't know why that wasn't. Oh, there we go. So I just added the Saveggio tone. So now I've added everything from the biofield, but now it's really important. We also want to get to and add our minerals, which we've talked about a lot. So I'm just going to pull in all of the minerals from in here, and zinc and lithium are really important.
And remember, you can't overdose somebody, because like a wet sponge will only draw in water where the sponge is dry. So you will suck in the minerals wherever you need them. But if you gave minerals that aren't needed, they will just pass through you and won't be absorbed. So there's no overdose possibility here. Okay. Just in case you're curious.
Right. Because the body is intelligent design. So it only takes what it needs. So here is for spinal energy. Again, spinal energy is really important, because if you know, we're not getting the correct flow of energy through all these vertebrae in here, we're not going to get all the messages from the brainstem to the nerves, which then controls the rest of your body. So I'm just going to add all the red, all the yellow.
And can I just comment and say that the vagus nerve comes out at C1. If you are pinched at C1, your entire autonomic nervous system will be shut down and no energy will be able to get in from your brain into the body. So any person with a C1-2 subluxation is the most dangerous, difficult, and most important area of the entire body to get straightened out, to get the head connected to the body again. And many whiplash clients or people with terrible worms that pull on their 40 muscles of the neck get very tight at the C1. So if you're having trouble with good results, you may not be having flow from the head through to the body. And so go and just remember, C1, C2 are absolutely critical for that big fat vagus nerve that supplies every autonomic nervous system nerve in the entire body, basically.
So yes, and I'm adding theta. I'm trying to work a little bit as Dr. Deb is talking so that we can get everything in here. But I also want to answer, someone has asked to explain how to create the vessel to scaffold the frequencies. That's what I'm doing right now, what I'm adding to the quick zap. So basically I've added everything from the biofield in there. And then I went back in and I added all the minerals and I added all the spinal energy components. And I also added theta from brain EEG, because that does put our mind in a better receptive state. That's the state that when we meditate, the waves that our brain is in. So hopefully, again, this is going to better prepare our body for taking in all these frequencies. And did you want to add anything else in here? I think that we can
maybe just the digestion button, because we're working on the gut
right
today.
I'll just add all of them in as well.
And, you know, you're never going to go wrong if you add infections stress in there, because there's always some biofilm that's a little disturbed. So not a single person you'll meet doesn't have some level of infection. Just some of them are right up into the red zones, meaning acute. But there is some kind of festering often in celiac disease or low-grade food poisoning. People can have salmonella for 25 years and they don't know it.
And here's my cerebellum again. So.
And what's important about the cerebellum? It's the highest rate of celiac receptors in the entire body, with the gluten receptors there. So
So-
people who have food poisoning attack the gut lining, and then they secondarily attack the cerebellum, causing a lot of multiple sclerosis, dizziness, ringing in the ears. So people may be thinking they got problems in their head when in fact it's originating in the gut.
So now, did you want to add in those, the infections, because aren't we just priming it now first? Like,
Yeah,
get
you know,
ready and then add those back in later.
you could do the primer and set yourself up for glory, and then come back and do the cleaning after.
So we already have 130 items in the quick zap. So I'm going to move the timer and I'm going to move it down to 1 minute and see how we do with that. So here we go.
So we've been talking about setting up that vessel. The vessel is a vortex of rotation on an axle. So when you use the things like the Fibonacci, like the center of the axle point, and the vertebrae and the nervous system, you're setting up that axle. And when you set up the organ systems and the nutrition, you're setting up the butterfly or the flow around it. So that's the combination of electro and magnetic. The magnetic part of your body is the polarity of feet is negative charge and head is positive charge. So by putting in all the good minerals and the Nogier frequencies, you're kind of aligning your organs on that axle. And then when something is sticking out of shape, it's easier for the body to see, because if everything is aligned and then one thing's sticking out, the body really takes notice of that misalignment better. So by aligning you near the beginning of your session, it makes it very obvious where you're malaligned in later parts of the session.
So here we had, for me, I had 20% rectification. I always like to see that higher, but for the point, for the demonstration, I think 20% is okay. And we can always move back to that, go back and add another minute if we need to, if we're not getting a higher enough percent rectification as we work on some other areas. So now the next part that we like to work on is from here, we'll go to the click on system overview, which is going to bring us to the general overview. And the general overview is basically, if you look at this page that we're on right now, the system overview, and you expand everything. So all these libraries that have information or panels underneath to go a little bit deeper. The general overview will then reorganize everything in numerical values. So we can see from the 27 libraries, what are, your top 5 or your top 10 reds, and the same with the blues. So I'm just going to click on system overview right now. And there you can see it brings us to the general overview. And again, we'll want to hit begin analysis down at the bottom. And I don't know what just, oh, Debbie, did you type that from me? Or the negative charge at feet south and positive charge at crown?
Yeah, I was just answering that question there.
I thought I typed something because it said my name. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I still got your name in
I
there.
was confused.
My apologies.
That's okay. So anyway, okay, so you can see the top reds here. We see the liver for digestion, which again, that is telling for what we're trying to work on here with the gut today. Then we can see some meridian points are out of whack, minerals, meridians again. So I think what we're going to do today is add all the reds and all the blues to the main hold tray. This is just another way of working with the general overview. So there are 2 ways. You could either hit the quick balance and everything that is red and everything that is blue, you can run by just adjusting the timer here on the side. When you click on general overview again, you see the ones that are the bottom lows. So I have bergamot and I have general pathogens from today's stress. Again, some more meridian points. So anyway, you can see now that I added them to the main hold tray. They're all in here, the reds and the blues. So I'm just going to go and hit the play button. And now this is just going to take working with all of these points from the general overview and just go a little bit deeper on it, because it will look at all the reds and all the blues in relationship to each other. So it's just another way of looking at it. I'm going to bring it all the way down to 1 minute again. And then I'm going to hit begin analysis. So now you can see here that I have some meridian points that came up top: bee pollen, gallbladder, urinary, ginkgo, niacin. So let's just hit all though, and we'll run all of those for 1 minute.
The benefit of this is you've already primed them with our 1 minute primer. So we've got some of the baselines fixed. So now when you do the secondary layer, the true elements that are stuck upwards are going to start moving up, up, up as they're not resolved. And so you may see that some things that used to be on the bottom suddenly flip to the top. So it may be quite interesting to just do small segments of 1 or 2 minutes and see what's rearranging and keeps floating up to the top. And if it keeps coming up liver on the top and parasites on the top, it's giving you, the coach, the knowledge of where you should be thinking along more global lines of investigation. The only the downside is there's so many items here that any one item is not as important as the collective together. So this is a great way to give a collection of upliftment of the whole process without getting stuck with too much time or items on just one item.
Right. And so here we can see that there was a 42% rectification. So that's actually really good. I'd be happy with that. And I'm going to go back out now because I don't think we need to run that again. And I'm actually going to clear the main hold tray. That served its purpose. We really worked with mostly everything that was on that main page. So here we can look at the body. We just might want to look at today's stress just to see what's affecting me today. And here we have heavy metal toxicity, hormonal, liver, cardiovascular. And Dr. Deb, you can probably speak a little bit better on some of these than myself, but given what we've been working with last week with parasites, this all seems to be like pretty.
You're starting to flush things out now. But
Exactly.
I do want to mention that we've been talking about bioterrain for the last month. And remember that as you moved up that bioterrain graph, it was heavy metals on the top. So the heavy metals are creating the oxidized alkaline environment, which fosters more bugs. So if you don't get rid of those heavy metals, you'll never change the soil of the field. So those same bugs will grow back and back and back. So as we burst, for instance, yeast infections, they release a lot of lead. So maybe her lead poisoning is coming now up the scan as she's killing things. And now the true culprit of the lead poisoning is showing up now on her third visit. It was in the middle on her first visit, and then it was higher on her second visit. And now it's glaringly obvious that this is one of the true culprits at the root of all these problems that are fostering these other concerns below. So keep your eyes peeled for heavy metals. They're usually the root of all evil that create that bioterrain oxygen shift that then invites these bugs in there. The bugs aren't the bad guys. They're only living in territory that will allow it. So if you keep allowing the territory to be full of pesticides for alkaline or heavy metals for oxidized, you're going to grow those bugs naturally. So instead of just fighting the bugs like doctors do with an antibiotic, we end up just knocking that bug into a higher resistant, antibiotic resistant bug. But if you actually change the metal on the soil, that bug doesn't have the actual positive growing conditions to live. So when in doubt, the heavy metals are really the ultimate strain on almost every system that will promote vulnerability to other infections. So keep an eye out for that.
I added, while you were speaking, brain, because as we spoke before, it's, going to have an impact on the brain. I added adrenal, bacteria. I think that we should add, because one of the things I think as I'm clearing out, which it might be good to mention, because if anybody is working on this for themselves, you may get little things pop up as your body is trying to get rid of all this stuff. I was kind of getting a little bit of a sty in my eye. You can't really see it, but it's healing now. It was on the inside of the eye, but you might have, experience some ways that these bugs or parasites are trying to exit and leave, or it could just be bacteria, not really sure what it is, but I just thought that I would mention that. It's not uncommon to have something like that happen. We can add the pathogens and environmental, fungus, nutritional. I'm just going to add the 200 and belows in here. Acid. And I think we got pretty much everything up here. Just going to add inflammation. Okay, so from here, we can also look at the infection energetics that we were just discussing below, and look at it. We have we have fungus and parasites showing its face. I'm just going to add all of these because
Funguses sequester metals. So if the funguses are high, you can pretty much probably be sure that there is some heavy metals. And when you explode the fungus, the heavy metals may be released and flare up temporarily during a yeast or a fungus kill. So that's a very important element to be aware of.
So, and I'm going to add digestion in again into, I know that we added digestion into the quick zap, but I think that we should also bring it down to the main hold tray.
And don't underestimate the power of enzymes, people, because an enzyme is what catalyzes a reaction. So if your enzymes are low, no work can get done in the body. So when you're trying to do somebody's big detox session, if they're very low in enzymes, you may have to work them up with some nutritional support for a week or two, even before you go into the big deep dive to kill things, because they don't have the machinery in their factory at each station to work on. So anybody who's very low in minerals or very low in enzymes, you can bet that they've been depleted, or that their body has been stolen from these vitamins from other colonies of parasites that like to steal these vitamins and enzymes from them.
So now just getting back to this section in body, I'm just going to glance at the organs just to see. So it's showing gallbladder. There's some energetic disturbance, the pancreas, the liver, the spleen, the lungs.
Food poisoning.
So I'm just going to add these in here.
And later, if you will allow me to, I'd like to tell you which bugs live in each of those 4 organs, so you know what you're chasing.
So I did add eyes just because I had that sty that showed up. Is there anything else? Do we want to look at serotonin or any of the
hormones are great, because you can see that there is quite a bit of disturbance right here, which I really wanted to talk today about how food poisoning creates thyroiditis and adrenal antibodies. And here she shows exhausted thyroid and parathyroids, which are the calcium regulators for the inflammatory cascade. So she must be inflamed if her calcium regulating thermostats are problematic. And if you went back to the top of the list, you'll see that the secretin enzyme that helps with autism prevention and for secreting enzymes in the gut is always difficult with celiac disease or parasites. And the glucagon says that I can't even store my glycogen in my liver. And then the gastrin secreting hormones are off. And then secondarily, because the thyroid is off, we now see that the follicle stimulating and progesterone and estrogen hormones are off, which depend on the thyroid. So any food poisoning gut usually produces thyroid antibodies, especially amoebas, salmonella, campylobacter, all these famous bugs. They always produce this secretin and celiac antibodies, which then cause an autoimmune thyroiditis and autoimmune adrenalitis. And this is why many people come in to see you and they're low in their adrenals and they're low in their thyroid. And you go in there and start working on the thyroid and adrenals, but you didn't realize there was a gut bug stealing from those organs or inflaming them. So think that the gut is very connected to the thyroid and adrenal thermostat, right?
Yep. And what else? Well, I've added those. I'm going to go out of hormones, and then I should probably go into glands, and here's the thyroid
Yeah,
and the thymus.
excellent. And pancreas every time, because blood sugar control is the control of the mind, the energy. If your pancreas is disturbed, there's something very tricky there. The medical profession has completely ignored tapeworm of the pancreas. So they let you go and get diabetes shots every month by using pork tapeworm insulin. And yet you're feeding the pork tapeworm that's in your pancreas. So it doesn't really make sense to leave everybody on insulin if they've got an infected pancreas.
So, okay. So now we're going to go back out. I am going to add in emotions in here, guys, because they're always connected to everything. And I am going to do the 600 and above here. And then let's look at the bottom. Curiosity.
Okay, and what is depression? It is low acetylcholine in the gut or low serotonin in the gut. So somewhere there is a acetylcholine thief like a tapeworm, or a yeast, which is a serotonin thief. And that's where the bioterrain of the gut can create depression.
And I'm going to add the Bach flower essence, just the reds and the blues on this, because they're really have a great, connection to working with clearing some of those flower essences. So I don't know how you feel. Do you want to go into libraries at this point? Yeah, I
think so. I think that really now you basically, there's nothing in here that says food poisoning, but it stinks of food poisoning because the glands are off, the hormones are off, the transmitters are off, the minerals are off. So something must be eating away at you. So let's look at the food poisoning submenus in the submenu libraries and see if we're dealing with a particular culprit that's stealing your basic nutrition. You know, because in North America, at least, most of us are relatively well fed, although I'd have to argue that there's probably no minerals left in the food anymore. So, you know, if somebody is well fed, then why would they have only a 5 or 6 different vitamins missing? Usually it's because that bug will eat those 5 selective vitamins. So the 5 vitamins we talked about, or minerals last week, was that parasites love sulfur, zinc, cobalt, iodine, and magnesium. So if you're missing those 5 things that run your thyroid and your liver, it might be that you have a thyroid or liver bug that's stealing those preferential 5 vitamins.
Okay, so I created a bunch of libraries to help work with these today. So let's just see. So celiac disease, these are the right frequency numbers for it. Everybody, just so you know, I do have one of the genes for celiac. I was never ever totally diagnosed 100% because I had already been gluten-free for a long period of time. But I would suspect that at some point, you know, had I not gone off, I would have. So I am going to add that for myself.
Can I just talk about that for a second? It's so critical you understand this. I did 20 years of research on this issue. Gluten is a square sugar, and the human nerve endings and the gut lining are made of square patio stones of gluten. So this was what keeps you like a nice tubular body with no holes in it. But if you have a food poisoning bug, the food poisoning bugs are also coated with square sugars. So the body starts producing antibodies against these square sugars. And now you're poking holes at the square bug of salmonella, but your nerve endings over here that look like the salmonella are also getting poked with anti-gluten antibodies. anti-gliadin antibodies, they're called, anti-endomycel antibodies. So any person with a food poisoning, the immune system can't tell the difference between a square in the bug or a square in you. So you end up getting these autoimmune gastritis, autoimmune thyroiditis, autoimmune nerve endings and depression, autoimmune adrenalitis, if you will. The moment that you have a food poisoning bug, you're going to start attacking yourself. So this is why I'm so aggressive at the leaky gut theory, and that it will automatically trigger acquired celiac disease, even if you didn't have the gene for it.
So I am going to, I've added, so we're not going to really work on Candida today, but there is something in here, I believe.
Well, remember that Candida is an alcohol fermenter that makes beer and wine. So if you have a lot of Candida, it's fermenting a lot of alcohol. And who drinks alcohol? Worms do. So worms are fed by the Candida. They often live together as a co-dominant sort of colony where they superimpose on each other the food chain that they each need. Now,
So I have food poisoning in here, which is why I came into this particular library, even though we're not really working on Candida today, but I just wanted to add these numbers. These are some elimination numbers for food poisoning and the Rife numbers for food poisoning. So we can go back, we'll use this library on another day.
And just on the bottom there, you have Giardia and Giardiasis. So that is the gallbladder bug that you showed up as high liver and high gallbladder. There's 3 or 4 bugs that love the gallbladder. It's called Salmonella, which can live in there 25 years, for which food handlers have to have their stool tested before they become a chef, right? Because that Salmonella can live silently in you as a carrier for 25 years. The second one is Giardia from swimming in a lake or something like that. And often Streptococcus or some of the bacterial infections like H. pylori or Bacteroides and a couple of other ones. Now, I have produced a little list of the most top bugs, and I can always.
Well, I have them in here.
Okay. I gave you a little list of my top ones that I've seen in medicine for the last, 50 years. These are the typical ones that come up. Now, there may be some rare ones, but again, amoeba loves to live in the liver and in the dental areas. So that would be very associated with gallbladder issues or pancreatitis. Taenia worms are larger that live in pancreas. The Apophilus donicus fluke is the most important fluke in the whole body that's associated with all cancers because it sucks out all the zinc and copper and manganese and all the very vital iodine out of your thyroid. So it's one of the more serious bugs. Very commonly, I can see here, you do see the pond protozoa.
I just got to the here's the Salmonella. So I mean, I
add them all.
Yeah, I'm just going to add them all as.
Now, folks, remember that you may not have all of these bugs at a full roar, but you may have the collection of the neighborhood that they look like each other. So this is not a diagnostic test as if we saw your stool culture or under a microscope, but it's extremely important to realize that every single bug has such a distinctive fingerprint, meaning different frequency, that if you have multiplicity of these, don't just pick the one on top, pick the whole biofilm of the collection of them because they tend to linger together, okay?
So now I'm going to go back out and go back to the bioterrain, and
the nosodes might be good.
Whoops, sorry guys. Yeah, that's what I was looking. Oh, here it is. So here are all the bowel nosodes, and with a little description of each of them. So I'm just going to add all of these.
You can see, folks, that most of you wouldn't have the medical knowledge to be able to understand all these, but the color coding is guiding you. So use the color coding whether you understand it or not, because the body has made some association between these red and blue zones. So don't be afraid to just pick every red and every blue zone there is.
Right. I'm not gonna add all of these right now. I just added the reds and the blues. And then the other library that I thought would be good is to add, I added some of these antifungal as solutions. So I'm just gonna add the blue.
And please remember, during fungus die-off, a tiny little virus is dead in a week. A big, a mini bacteria is dead in 2 weeks, but a fungus takes 3 to 8 months, sometimes 18 months to kill. And it causes sticky blood, sticky platelets, high cholesterol, anxiety, fermentation. So the sooner you get those funguses out of the body, then then you stop that fermentation of alcohol that is feeding these other bugs. But it does take a lot longer to get rid of a fungus. So don't be discouraged if it comes back week after week. You have to really change the body's pH in order to get rid of that fungus.
Okay, and here I'm just going to go back to this library that we used last week because I did have good solutions in here. I've added like ivermectin and other things. And a bunch of these have showed up as still needing it. So I'm going to add all these blue.
And I just saw you pass by one frequency code there called alcoholism 10,000 hertz. When you have yeast or fungus, it releases alcohol poisoning and makes people psychotic on the die-off or a Herxheimer reaction. So I typically, whenever I'm treating parasites of the gut, I treat for alcoholism, which reduces the alcohol fermentation coming out of that dying yeast so that the person doesn't get into a really big hangover after your session, because you're really releasing quite a bit of alcohol when you kill yeast.
So I actually just added everything in here because we'll find out when we get to the main whole tray, which are the important ones or not. I don't know which did you want to look at different I don't know if bacterias, or do we have enough to work with right now? What did you want to do with this?
I don't know if you have a sub menu on bacteria. If you could, I'd like to show you the 5 top food poisoning bugs worth memorizing. I
have yours.
Oh yeah, you listed it on that list. Well, that list might be worthy of us either helping people get a screenshot of that after class or whatever, so they can look around for some of these major ones. I'm not sure how we might help the clients.
Well, we'll figure that out between now and Tuesday when you do that. Let's just get back to. So we have all those in. So should we just go for working with?
Sure, go for it. Remember, you're trying to balance everything in the whole sun, which you have access to, versus the reality that you only have a 1-hour session. So pick your priorities, pick your battles, work for a couple of weeks in a row on the similar patterns, and let the computer do all the heavy lifting by sorting them out for you.
So now how I always like to work is when I have everything in the main tray, I run everything on 1 minute twice, rescanning in between, and then just the highs for 3 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do right now.
If you have more than a couple hundred items in there, you may want to use a 3-minute zap, but
we'll do this
for demonstration purposes today.
We'll see, because we're running out of time. Let's see. Hopefully we'll get a good rectification on.
Remember that the general originating softwares ran 10,000 items in 3 minutes. So you can do a lot of energy work with 100 items in 3 minutes. And this is one of the benefits of this device, is it gives you the rectification after that 1 minute. And if it's 20%, run it another minute. Try to get 40, run it 1 more minute, see if you can get 60. How are you feeling on this, Denise?
I'm feeling okay right now. I'll let you know tonight.
Now, I would like to mention that you can't have a bug in your stomach without releasing histamine. And histamine is going to make anxiety and insomnia. So when people come to say to you, I've got all this high histamine and I'm anxious and I'm sleepless, 1 out of every 2 clients that come to you with that kind of a scenario has probably got something going on in their gut, charging up their histamine all the time. And histamine depletes GABA, the transmitter for relaxation. This is why many people are seeking CBD and cannabinoids, because the cannabinoids hold the GABA component. So people with a lot of worms and psychosis, they get healed by CBD oil. It stops their seizures and such. But that doesn't mean that you should stop there. You need to go under, why was their GABA stolen? Why are they so high in histamine? And that'll help their anxiety levels dramatically by bringing down the gut bugs. And then their anxiety in the head goes down and they stop blaming themselves and saying, I don't know why I'm anxious. There's nothing in my life that's anxiety provoking. They just didn't know they had an amoeba in their gallbladder.
So I had a very low rectification here. I'm thinking actually to go back and run the quick zap
Okay,
for
give it a shot.
just a
Give me a
minute to see if we can.
Consider
Kind of
that,
just,
consider that quick zap like an IV bag of all the juiciest things coming in to give you the power enough to get the job done down on the factory floor. And you know, we have been maybe a little greedy by using 200 or 300 things at a time. And because it's so accessible to us, it's hard to resist, right? But if you have too many items on the screen and you just make everything equal, you might be giving 5 seconds to every item, but that you're missing the 25 seconds or 3 minutes on the one most dominant item. So don't be afraid if you absolutely keep seeing salmonella come back at the top of your list every day. Feel free to go in there and do a 7-minute zap just on that one big bug if it keeps coming up to the top.
so let's see now, we're on, this is almost done. So 26%. So hopefully, so now let's close that. Whoops. We can rescan. And now again, I'm going to hit all for 1 minute and see.
And look
But-
what came up, the big old Pseudomonas that attacks the adrenals, and the
Mhm.
big old pork tapeworm that attacks the tapeworm in the pancreas, causing celiac disease. So now we're getting back right down to the real true culprits, because the minor culprits will be swept away on the first pass, but the real true chronic culprits will be standing up like a sore thumb on the second pass, which we see here.
So I'm just going to start running these because we are getting close to the top of the hour. So
We need a genius program at the checkout of the supermarket, and all the foods that pass over the cashier get zapped as they go by on their barcode. Now, one of the most tricky things I'd like to mention is that chicken is the most common cause of food poisoning, salmonella, but chicken is also fed wheat pellets, and the muscle within chicken looks like celiac, gluten. So anybody with food poisoning or an autoimmune condition or thyroiditis, they have to stop chicken, which is provoking the immune response as if they had gluten in their bodies. So I recommend that everybody switch to rice and turkey instead of wheat and chicken if they have a celiac predisposition or a gut problem.
So now I got 24% rectification. So it's not great, but it is definitely better than the 8% I had before. I'm going to rescan this and then we can look at what the highs are and run those for 3 minutes. And look at the, which came to the top up here. So
Okay, there's the big food poisoning, Pyrogenium, the most common food poisoning in the world. And this one causes a lot of difficulties for people with thyroid and liver and gallbladder. So again, and also I noticed schistosomiasis here, which is the kind of like the flukes in the bloodstream that are from walking barefoot on the beach or picking up snail eggs. This could be very, very high in African nations or people of the tropics because they swim in the ocean a lot.
just gonna, There's food poisoning in there, the right number for food poisoning.
Yeah. I would like you to notice one other thing here. See, it says thiamine. This is vitamin B1, which is reduction of alcohol. So if somebody's an alcoholic, they run out of vitamin B1 and have no short-term memory and no DNA repair and no carbohydrates. So because she showed alcoholism and thiamine, I suspect she's got a yeast in there fermenting a lot of alcohol, and she's preferentially losing that thiamine to the liver, trying to get rid of the alcohol. So you know, and Denise is not a heavy drinker, so why should she be showing alcohol and low thiamine? It must be the bugs in her that are fermenting a lot of alcohol and using up all her B vitamins in her liver.
I am getting very thirsty. I have
Okay. Everybody should be working with a drink. Every time you're on a magnet, you need extra pumping pressure, just like an IV bag to prime the pump. You got to get that water in before you start that magnetic pumping action. Before, during, and after, really. Because what happens to these bugs? They're not dying of a chemical attack by your white blood cells. They're exploding with magnetic frequencies into water and mush. So in the toilet bowl, after you treat flukes, my clients tell me it looks like tomato skins on the toilet bowl. That's the fluke that was ruptured and you just see its cell wall there. But now the body doesn't have to react with chemistry, because when the bug explodes, it releases amino acids, fatty acids, minerals. So when your white blood cell comes along, it goes, oh, there's some food for me. It doesn't see it as a foreigner upon which it has to shoot chemical killing frequencies. The body now is just absorbing the water that was exploded out of that bug. So that's why you don't really have a bad side effect after the Genius program. Your body is just turning these bugs into water. And that's unlike an antibiotic, which might kill off the good flora or create a cytokine storm and other things that have negative side effects. So there's a lot less Herxheimer reaction and negative backlash after you do the Genius program than you would get by taking oral antibiotics, which not only kill the bad bugs, but they kill the good flora.
And for one of the questions, I have the waveform on alternating, so it's going through all the different waveforms. I'm not sure, Pam, what library had that in it for physical abuse as a child, that elimination number, but I guess it's that frequency of that is needed. 67%, so that's great.
Beautiful.
So let's go, and since we're really behind schedule here, look at what my aura looks like, and we might just have to just close out with our quick zap or maybe some of our gemstones.
One of the questions is, can we use the Sawtooth Wave? Yes, anything that's square wave or sawtooth does chew up and cut through the organism's walls, but not all organisms have a cell wall. There are cell wall deficient bugs called mycoplasma and rickettsia. So that sometimes requires a different kind of a scenario. So using the alternating frequencies between sawtooth, triangular, and waveforms it's a relatively good compromise. But if you're strictly going after bugs, you can use the sawtooth or square waves.
So just quickly, everyone, because we are after 3. So the aura here is still, struggling a little bit, but we are working with a lot of frequencies. I would like to go in and just use the the stones. I'm going to use these Alaskan gemstones on a quick balance. I'm just going to move them up to 0 and hopefully run them for 30 seconds since we're running out of time.
Good job, Denise.
Thanks, you too. You can explain this, the medical background a lot better than I can.
Well, once you guys start doing a lot of clients, you're going to start noticing these patterns. Everybody with amoeba has thyroiditis. Everybody with yeast has low serotonin. Everybody with worms is low in zinc. So when you start seeing some of these patterns, you're going to start to know where to go down the rabbit hole on clients if you sort of see those patterns. The one thing I would mention is every bug in the whole world is pretty much killed by sulfur. So if they keep saying they're low in nat sulp or septolin or sulfur, there's some indication there that we have to really load the body back up with sulfur as one of the mainstays of the liver's ability to use glutathione and clean the body itself.
So I didn't, the aura, is still looking kind of I would just run this again for myself. Probably if we had longer time, everybody, I would run it on 3 minutes. I'm just going to run it on 1 minute just to close in to make sure I'm getting in those minerals and everything that to fill up the vessel, just to make sure that my everything with the aura and my biofield is staying strong.
I'd like to propose that next week we do this again, but go down the rabbit hole on Candida and fungus, which have some particular interesting patterns that we'd like to show you next week.
What did you want to go down?
Down Candida and fungus next week.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the graphics look a little disorganized here today for all these but 31%, that keeps going up. So whoops.
Denise is going to be squeaky clean, says V.
Let's see if it helped at all. Oh, thanks, V. This is really gonna like an extended process to really clean this up. I would think it's at least a 2-week process, but I do think that that looks a lot better. Would you agree there?
I would.
So I think that's probably a good stopping point for everyone. And we have a lot of all this information. We have some great libraries. So, we can help everybody look at some of those library lists if you're interested in that to help with all these. So we'll get some of this information out there to you. All right. But otherwise,
let's post that little list that I gave you in the chat box inside Mighty Network so they can have a look.
Sure. And anyway, it's been a great Thursday live. I hope everybody has learned a lot and they're all working on yourselves and learning how to clear up your own your gut brain. And we will see you next Thursday. And hopefully you will sign in also on Tuesday to Dr. Debbie Drake's live Zoom. So it's been a pleasure working with everybody today. Thank you.
God bless you all.
Bye, everyone.